The new topics that's on the quiz next. So we're doing one of the topics that will be on next week's quiz. It's not the biggest topic. That's definitely going to be the graphing, and I'm going to go over everything that's going to be on there at the end of class. I'll say, here's the list of stuff. It's probably going to be as big as the section on creating an equation from a word problem, which is going to be worth quite a few points. So I would say this is like the second biggest thing that's going to be on the quiz next week. The first thing, the main thing you have to know for this, well, maybe not the main thing. You need to know how to pull out a y-intercept from a line on a graph. It's not hard. We've been over it many times before.
For intercept, so I can write it down.
I'm going to go over all of that when we go over this. So we are going to be creating an equation from the line already on a graph. What we did for a full week, I think last week, is we had an equation and we created the line on the graph. Now we're doing the opposite. We're getting the line first and we have to create the equation from that line. So I'm going to give you some steps. I'll give them to you. We're going to do the blue line and the red line. So first we'll create the equation for the red line, then we'll create the equation for the blue line. You don't have the lines, but you can still write the steps down. And you're going to practice in a minute. Again, if you did not grab these two things up here, one of them is your practice. So come grab one of each of those. The gold thing is actually old. That was from word problems. We already did that. But I didn't have it printed yet. All right, so here's your first step. Oh, all of the equations we create, by the way, are in this format. Oh, shoot. All of the equations are in this format. Y equals mx plus b. So I'm hearing this random noise. Like, if you need attention, just raise your hand. We'll give you some attention. Remember, it's coming. We'll look at you for a little while, whoever it is, and then you'll be done. I don't know who's doing it sounds like almost a dolphin, so I think that might be, but if you need attention, let us know and we'll stare at whoever's doing it. Because I'm not having that. I'm over that kind of stuff. I moved to high school for a reason. In a minute, let me go through this real quick. Tyler, yeah, Tyler, if you want to come up, and Luis is not here today. All right, so this is always going to be the format of the equation in this class. I'm not going to make you create an equation that's in the a times x plus b times y equals c. I don't even know how much you'll do that next year. It's possible to do it, but we're going to focus on this type of equation. So you only got to worry about one thing when you're creating an equation from a line. It's very similar to when we created the line from an equation in the same format, y equals mx plus b. We needed to know from the equation what's the y-intercept, and then we put a point on the y-intercept to start, and then we took the slope, which was rise over run, and we found the second point. Last week we did that. Yeah, word problems.
Oh yeah, that's what we did yesterday.
So we're going to do kind of some of the same stuff. If you don't have this written down, actually, I don't care if you have it written down or not. Write this little section right here on the white papers you got today that have the little graphs on it. That way it's right there. You don't have to search through your notes. If you use these on the big quiz next week, which you probably should, to do this section, say it like 6 times. If you don't have one of those, go grab them. So I don't know what to say.
Which one? The gold paper?
What's that?
Oh.
No, you'll have plenty of time when you're gonna have like 40 minutes
You have so many
practice. Huh?
At the end?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a bunch of practice time today. I mean, I want to make sure you get this, but I don't think that it's super difficult stuff.
Yeah.
All right, write that down. Positive run means you're going right. Negative run means you're going left. Positive rise going up. Counting, it says negative rise going down. We're actually going to do it in the opposite order instead of, we won't know the rise and the run. We'll know which direction first, and then we're going to have to figure out whether or not the rise and the run should be positive or negative.
Right now?
If you want to do the arrows, you can do the arrows. I did the arrows before. This time I did the words. It dawned on me maybe some people didn't understand what the arrow was saying to do. Yeah, you're after Ladar.
Arrow 2.
You're after Kayla. I may have to start a list. Right now, I think we can handle 3. Lazara, Kayla, Tyler. All right, so you all have that. We'll let it move on. I'm recording, remember, so if you miss anything, you can go back and watch it. I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you can't see it at all, I'm not going to let you start over. You should have told me that a long time ago.
I just got a notebook open.
Well, then what am I going to say to that then? What am I going to say to that then? That you just got your notebook open. What am I going to say? I would say that should have been open a long time ago. So, they just brought your notebook? Is that why they brought it?
No, it's bad.
Oh. Well, again, that should have been done a long time ago. So you can watch the video. I mean, you should already have that stuff written down. We've done it other days. I didn't want you to have to look through your notes to find it. And you may not even need it. So every time I do this, it's going to be in that format. All I'm missing is 2 things. So here's your first step. Oh, here's the topic, by the way. Creating equations, but from a graph this time instead of from a word function. So you can write creating equations kind of as a new topic if you're doing this in your notebook. Creating equations from a graph. Some people are not participating. Correct.
Why do nobody like it?
Some people do like my class. Some people do like my class. Not in this class, maybe. All right, so here is your first step under that topic. You write that. Leave a blank in front of the x, because we're going to put something there eventually. We're going to put whatever the value of m is, the slope. And then after the plus, we're going to also put something. But you can go ahead and write y equals, again, leave a blank and then put x and then put the plus. Every equation you create is going to have that in. Every one. You're never going to be missing a y, missing an x. You could theoretically have a different sign than the plus sign, but we can work around that. We'll just say plus a negative instead of using subtraction. I don't care where you write it, it's a note. You can write it there, you can write it in a notebook, I don't care, as long as you can get to it for the next week's quiz. It's about the white paper, so it doesn't hurt to put it on the white paper. Now we're only missing 2 things in it. Like that's it. 2 things. We're missing the slope and we're missing the y-intercept. We can figure those 2 things out. We've done the equation. We just did for bell work how to figure out the y-intercept. So for the red line, what did we say the y-intercept was? It's just where it crosses over the y-axis, right? So that's the y-axis. And again, the y-axis is an imaginary number line. When I say line, I'm not talking about the y-axis or the x-axis. I'm talking about the line on the graph, which in this case is a red line. There's 2 of them, so we're talking about the red one. The y-intercept for the red line is 4. Right where that red line crosses over that y-axis. That's the y-intercept. So all you gotta do is put that at the end of the equation. There's part of our equation. We're almost done. We're missing 1 thing and we're done. Now the last thing to figure out is the toughest thing to figure out. but it's still not hard stuff. It's just takes a few more steps than just looking and putting a number. Does anybody remember when we graphed something in that format? So let's say I gave you an equation like 2x plus 1, y equals 2x plus 1, and we graphed it. What did we do next once we had put a point on the y-intercept?
We put like a graphing made it to a fraction the slope.
We did use the slope, we made it into a fraction, and then we did what?
We did the right of the run on the slope.
So guess what we're going to do again? Rise over run. We're going to do rise over run again. It's not that much different than when we created the line from an equation. Pretty simple. The only thing is, we don't have the numbers for this. There's no slope in the equation yet.
Wait, I'm really confused.
Well, there's a lot of chatter going on, so that could be part of it. So what are you confused about?
I don't know. I'm just confused. Like, there wasn't.
Well, you can ask a question, but again, when I hear the constant chatter during the lesson, don't feel too sorry for people that are confused. And I've just heard it for the last 5 minutes. I've talked over it. Yep, I should be the only voice that I hear, and it's almost never the case in this class. And I'm starting to be over it in this class, so you can go back and watch the videos and catch up if you want. If not, I'll work with people that care, and the other people. And I know you care, but don't let other people drag you down.
Yeah.
So, and that'll happen in life too. When you get a job, some employees are good employees, some people are not good employees. Don't let the bad employees drag you down, because you'll both lose your job, not just them. I've seen it happen. We're going to use rise over run, but we don't have any numbers to put here. There's nothing in the equation. We've got to actually kind of reverse the process and figure out for them. I need to know what is my run number, what is my rise number, and then I'm going to put that into the equation. So with that in mind, here's how you do that part. So you can still write rise over run. That's the next step after you figure out the y-intercept. We have to, and I actually have a whole bunch of these steps. Yeah, I've got this. I didn't print it out because frankly, it's not that much different than what we did when we graphed, and I just feel like that's too much. So if you want it, I can print it out and like for next time or something for the quiz. But I feel like you can just take quicker notes and just put it down. Here's the only real, I guess, tricky part. It's not difficult. It's just got to be careful. When you are trying to figure out the rise and the run, remember when we graphed, we went from the y-intercept, we counted over and up or over and down, and we put a point there. Well, now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to figure out another point. So here's one point. We're going to figure out another point on the graph by just picking a point on the line. And then we're going to count, well, how far over do we have to go and how far up, or how far over and how far down do we have to go? And that's our rise and our run. Now here's the tricky part. I'm going to sneeze. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not. Sometimes you just can't quite sneeze. You start to and stop. I think I just stopped. If I pick this point right here, because it has to be on the line, like, again, we're graphing a line. Well, now we're graphing an equation from a line. So it's got to be on the line in order to be the right point, one of the correct points. And if I say, well, I got to go over to that point, and I go to right about there, I've got to be directly under the point or directly over, because I can't go diagonal. I go left and right, up and down. That's what rise and run, left and right, up and down. How far did I just go over to get to that point?
5.
What would my run number be?
5.5.
5.5, you think? Think 5.5? You know that? Would you bet your life on it?
No.
You bet your life on it. Wow, that's brave. That's clearly because you don't actually have your life on it.
A half of a whole number is.
How do you know it's half?
It's because it's the half of.
How do you know that half? What if it's 0.49, not 0.5? Or 0.48 or 0.46 or 0.41?
But wouldn't you still round the number up?
No, because we need an exact coordinate. We can't say that point is, you can't round a point up. We have to know exactly where that is.
See, my teacher asked me the same question. Like,
How we
last year. No,
See iRobot? iRobot, you ever see that movie?
Tell me why.
No. I love that movie. Anybody ever see iRobot?
Yeah.
The answer is how are we supposed to?
Well, he goes in it, he goes, that is the correct question. Like whenever Will Smith is asking questions and then he finally will get to a question, the guy goes, that, no, that's real estate. He goes, that is the correct question. That, Kayla, is the correct question. How do we know? We don't know. There is no way you can tell me what the x value is for that point. It's in the middle of two integers, like it's in the middle. We don't want to pick a point in the middle. No. Well,
Good.
no. Yeah, actually we could. We could solve it out. You don't want to do that.
No, I don't wanna do it.
You do not want to do that.
Do you know how to
So
do
here's
it?
the moral of the story. Yeah, I do, but I'm not. You don't want to. It's actually not too bad. We don't want to pick a point that's in between two integers. That's the moral of the story. Why wouldn't we just pick a point? Because it just has to be on the line, right? All I said is it has to be on the line. So instead of that point, why don't we pick this point on the line that's a little farther away? And now we can go all the way to the 6. And now we know that's a full 6 spaces or a full 6 hops. I always count the hops is what I say. So when you pick a point, here's what you should be taking down as a note. When you're picking your 2 points, and the farther away they are, the better, really. I will never take off for picking 2 points that are close together, but I will take off if when you calculate out the hops, they're the wrong numbers. And sometimes if you don't pick points far enough away from each other, they're going to be the wrong numbers.
Can you re-say that?
When picking the 2 points.
Well, that's nothing to write down. Just when picking the 2 points, this is what you need to write down. I was in the process of telling you that. Just make sure those 2 points, and again, I don't know how you would say this. I'm going to say it. I call it on the corners of squares. Like make sure it's a point that, and again, I'm just giving you an example of what a corner of a square is. These are corners of squares, like where all those squares, all those corners are meeting. That's the corner of a square. So when you're going on this line, don't pick points like these. These are not on corners of squares. That is, so you can pick that. That is. I mean, I like to think a lot of stuff's common sense, but people don't get it when it comes to quiz and test time. So that's why I'm explaining it. You get that automatically, then you don't have to write it down.
Oh, we did.
So make sure. So I've got a bunch of points I could pick actually on this line. This goes through the corner squares there. It goes through corner squares there, and there, and there. There's a whole bunch of them on this
All we
one.
had to do was pick-
On the line. It's got to be on the line.
Oh, I didn't know that's what intercept meant.
Well, no. See, that's where it gets confusing. This is not the y-intercept.
Oh.
Different thing.
Oh.
Different thing. Y-intercept is that 1 point. We are now just picking 2 points on the line, anywhere on the line, but they have to go through corners.
What?
Now, and I think I meant to say intersection, not intercept.
It is back.
So it didn't
What?
matter.
Which point?
For the bell work,
On the
it
line?
didn't matter which one we picked.
2 points on the line that are on the corners of squares. Any 2. I'm going to show you in a second. Just hold tight. Let me finish my part, and then we'll do one together. So I could pick all different ones. There's all kind of points on this particular line that go through corners of squares. Now, sometimes there's only going to be 2. So those are the only 2 you can really choose from. I could pick this one and that one. I could pick this one and that one, or this one. I mean, I got all kind of choices in this one. I told you, though, I like picking the 2 that are the farthest apart. So I'm going to pick the 2 that are farthest apart. Way over here, way over here. Again, they're going through the corners of squares, and they're on the line, so they meet those 2 criteria. That's all they have to meet. Now I just see how do I get from this point to that point using rise and run. Like just going left and right, just going up and down. No diagonal movements. If I'm on this point and I'm trying to go to that point, when I go left or right?
Right.
I hope everybody sees right. Somehow, somebody last class was trying to go left. I'm like, how? Why would you? I don't know. I don't know. Again,
The left one.
just like Tyler said, that's obvious. Tyler, it's not always obvious. Trust me. I think it is, and a lot of people think it is, but somehow somebody has something else going in their brain. So I don't know how. Maybe they've seen something else somewhere else. So if I'm going to go to that point, again, I have to go straight right. I can't go anywhere up. I'm going to go along this imaginary grid line until I get right underneath that point, which I think is there. Yeah. So now I stop. And now I go up to that line. It's kind of like Mr. Gill went to the elevator, and then he took the elevator up or down. Same concept. I go over to the elevator. I take the elevator up. Now I've made it to that second point. Well, now I have a rise and a run number. I just got to count how far I went. So I count the hops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I hop up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are my rise and my run numbers right there. Now, you do have to remember, and that's why I had you write this stuff down, when it's positive and negative. So going right for a run is positive. Going up for a rise is also positive. So they're both positive numbers. So there's my rise and my run number, which is my slope. But what's wrong with that number?
It can be simplified.
Yeah, we would never write 6/12 down in the slope. What would we write?
1/2.
Yeah. So we divide both by 6 and get that. So that's your equation. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Like I said, most of it was super fast and super simple. Y equals x plus 4 was pretty fast. I mean, we didn't have to do a whole lot to get that. The only somewhat challenging part is you got to pick 2 points and then make sure you count the correct direction and up, down, make sure it's positive, negative. Yes, ma'am.
Where'd you get 4 from?
I don't know. Where's the 4? Oh, where'd we get 4 from?
You think are
What's the 4 stand for? What part of the equation is that represented?
the B,
Which is what?
the Y number. Oh, I know, yeah.
So it's well, it's in a word problem, it's a starting number, but in an equation, it's what? It's the y-intercept, right?
Yeah.
That's the y-intercept. That's where the line crosses the y-axis. That's where the 4 came from. That's always your first, well, your first step is to write y equals blank x plus blank. That's your first step. Then your next step is, well, where's the y-intercept? All right. Any questions on that? We're going to do one more, and then you can just start practicing, and I'll tell you what you're going to get to do when you practice.
No, she goes.
No, because you're 4th. Is he 4th?
Yeah. It's
After you.
Lazar,
She's
Caleb.
going. He's going. She's
And
going.
Caleb,
I'm going.
and Tyler,
He's
and
going.
yeah, you're 4th. I thought
I'm
that's.
gonna get water after that. Please.
I might let you run real quick, yeah, even before that. If you're if you run quickly to get water, well, I mean, no, everybody, you're still gonna.
I
run.
don't use the bathroom at small water.
Oh, all right, well, we'll figure it out. Again, well, once we practice this next one and you start working, then we'll figure all that out. I guess we could do the blue one. Let's do the blue one together then. Is anybody still writing for the red one? Try to get rid of all of it so we can clearly see the blue one. All right. So now let's kind of do it together. So first step is to do what? Change to blue. First step is to do what? You should have these steps written down already. Before that even.
Write down the Y equals.
Yeah, always. This is, again, if you are just totally clueless, I'll give you some points for that. Even though you've done absolutely nothing, really.
Wait, you forgot the.
I won't let you take a 0 if you can at least write that.
That? I thought you were supposed to write like Y equals.
That's next. Well, this is y equals mx plus b. We're just missing the m and the b.
Okay.
That's where that comes from. We're missing this and we're missing this, but we have all the other stuff. The other stuff is still going to be in there. So that's where that comes from. Yes, sir. So now we need to come up with the y-intercept, right? As we said, that's the second step. So it's what?
-3.
So we just write at the end, because the y-intercept goes at the end. You don't even have to change it to subtract 3. Just say plus -3. Same thing. I feel like plus negative is better than subtraction. Now, again, the step that takes a little bit longer, I still wouldn't say it's difficult, but it just takes a little longer. I got to figure out what is the slope. That's what I'm missing, the m value. So what do I do for that? I'm going to call on Brandon.
No.
You've been good at it.
Is that -3?
What do I say? Yeah, plus -3. What did I say we do? Or when we graph, kind of what did we do at about the same point? You're good at the graph. It's the slope. That's a hint. It has to do with slope.
Alright, so now what do you
You're on the right, but before that, what do you know about slope? That's what we do. You just write rise over run. Kind of like we did in the other one. We wrote rise over run.
You do the farthest apart.
Now we have to pick 2 points. Now I'll say one thing real quick. If we've already picked out the y-intercept, the y-intercept is always going to be a point you can use. Because it's going to be at x of 0, and then it's going to be on the y-axis, so it'll always go through corners. So you could use the y-intercept every time if you wanted. So what's another point we could use?
7.
I was hoping
No.
nobody would do that.
No,
You
because
tell me
that's-
where 7 is on this graph.
Positive right now.
No, where's 7 on this graph? Because there's an
It's
infinite
not
number
on
of
the
7.
line.
That's one. You're right.
Well, not only that, but here's the other,
Negative
hold on, I gotta make a real quick point. 7 tells me almost nothing. This is a coordinate plane. If you want me to know where you're at, like if you say 7, I know what you're talking about, but that doesn't tell me nearly enough information.
What do you mean?
7, that's one number.
Negative 4 and 7.
No, you
What?
can do
What do you
No,
mean by
7.
that? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, hold on, I'm making a different point. Ignore what we're doing, because I gotta fix this, because it's driving me crazy today. This is a coordinate plane. If you're saying 7, I feel like I know where, because kids do it all the time. I feel like I know what you're talking about, but technically, 7 tells me nothing. First of all, I don't know, is it a 7 here, or is it 7 here? So that's the first problem. I think I got 2
7
sevens.
on the y-axis.
But again, 7 on the y-axis is an infinite number of points. And I don't think you guys are understanding it. 7 on the y-axis means y is 7. Like that's what that means. Y is 7, right? Problem is, y is 7 anywhere along that grid line. Y is 7. You can't just say one number. If you want me to know where you're talking about on that graph, you got to say x and then y. And then I can tell you a specific point on that graph. So if you're saying 7, I think what you really mean, you're saying this, even though it wouldn't be on the line. I think you're saying that point. Because that would be 0 is the x, 7, so it would be that point right there. I'm not sure why you didn't say 7. It's not on the line. Maybe that's not what you meant then. But anyway, you've got to give, when you're talking about a graph, it's called a coordinate plane. You've got to say an x and a y, or else you've not really helped a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
That's kind of like we went over longitude and latitude, right? Imaginary lines that go around the globe and can tell you that's how GPS works. If I only give you one of those two, if I say, hey, I'm at a latitude of this, well, that means you could be anywhere on the earth from the top of the earth all the way down to the bottom of the earth. That doesn't do me any good. Be a little more specific. You got to give me both numbers. You got to give me both. Well, if you got to give me both of those, you got to give me both x and y, so I know where you're at. Same exact concept, if that helps. If it doesn't, then it's not going to hurt you any. But
So wouldn't it be x?
so now let's come up with a point. So we need another point on that blue line, and again, it goes through corners. I hate letting somebody dominate, but since you're new, I'll see where you're at.
Like how you said, select the farthest one and you do -4 and 7.
So let's see if that works. -4 is here. 7 is up here. Yeah, perfect. On the line. And I actually asked you, but then I got off. I said, I think you're right. Explain to me what your, so x -4 was your x, 7 was y. I heard you. So now I have 2 points. I just have to do my hopping thing. I got to go left or right first. So if I'm starting here, am I going to go left to get to that other point?
Does it matter where you start? Like, if I start out at the same time,
Well, it kind of does matter. Where did you say? Could I start where?
like 6, start 5, like, do you have to start?
What's, again, you got to tell me more specifically. 6 is way over here, because that's an, that would
6
be.
lines, like, you start. So you see
You're
how,
saying
like,
here?
Yeah, like, you know how you see, like.
Well, it's got to be on the line for sure.
Wait, no, you just, like, point, you put a dot on random places that you want. Like, that's.
Okay, 2 requirements. If you don't have these, if you do not have these 2 requirements down for choosing the 2 points you're going to use, you better write them down. I've said it, I don't know how many times already. Has to be on the line that you're trying to find the slope of, because we're trying to find the slope of the line, and it has to be on corners. As if it meets those 2 requirements, you're good. So again, -4, 7 is on the line and on corners. Now there are other points you can use on that line. That's not the only ones.
Yeah, that's.
And the farther apart, the better. But that's not as big a requirement.
Another point you can use is -2.
So -2 and 2. -2, +2, on the line, also on corners. There's a bunch of them on this line also. Again, sometimes, especially when the graph is smaller, like if you look at your sheet, those graphs only go to what, 5 maybe? Yeah, so sometimes when the graphs are smaller, you're going to have less options. These go all the way up to 7 though, which gives you a lot more possible options typically. So now here's our next step.
Wait.
I need.
Like X. Okay, so we're gonna find the X and Y. So the Y is.
Well, let's back up. We're not finding X and Y at all. They're just going to stay X and Y.
Yeah. But like.
So
But okay, so
we're going to find the rise and the run.
Yeah, the rise and the run.
Okay, is that what you're talking about?
I don't know. I'm talking about like the B and the M, like where.
Well, the B we found.
Yeah.
So we're good there.
So that has to be on the X-axis because the Y-axis isn't it B like Y?
The B is the y-intercept. That's where your line is crossing
y-intercept.
over the X or the y-axis. That's
So it has
the
to
only
be
thing.
on the,
That,
like, intercept there.
absolutely, that's the definition of it. It's where your line crosses over the y-axis. That's the definition of the y-intercept. It's wherever your line overlaps, connects, crosses the y-axis. But again, that has nothing to do with this. We already did that. We're done with it. We're moving on to finding this number. That only has to do with the rise and the run, which has to do with going from this point to that point, and how far did we have to go to get there, and which directions do we go. So if I'm trying to go from that point to that point, what direction do I go first?
Right.
So to get from here to here, you go this way.
I thought you were talking about the long one.
Well, let me talk about that. It really doesn't matter. I could start here and go left. Problem with that is there are other things in math where we're going right. And that's going to tend to give you a lot of negative numbers if you start with this number and you go left first. It's always going to be negative, and I try to avoid negative numbers. Doesn't matter. You can do it that way. It'll still get you the final number if you know how to do your rules of positive and negative numbers. But sometimes we get confused on those rules. So if we go right, we're always going to have a positive number as our run. Always. Because run, going right, positive. So that's why I always start on the left and go right, because it'll always be positive. So I would go 1, 2, 3, and if I'm getting directly above this, then I'm on the y-axis, which means 4. I'm not done yet. I'm just kind of pausing. And now I go down. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this would be a 4. Hopefully you can see that. That's a 4 as my run. It's positive because I went to the right. Now I did go down for my rise, and you can't, well, I guess I can scroll a little bit. So down is a negative number for the rise. So, oh, I didn't count them. So that was 10, but again, negative because I went down. So that is your slope, but what's wrong with it? Yeah, that's not what you would see on any kind of quiz if it was multiple choice. They're going to simplify that down. What would I divide by to simplify it?
5.
Well, 5 won't work because 5 doesn't go into 4. Just 2. It's there. That's all you can do. These are both even. So if you divide them both by 2, I guess I can just write it over here. I don't care where you put the negative, by the way. Technically, you're normally going to see the negative out in front. If you put it with the top number or the bottom number, just don't make it into 2 negatives. So I am going to write it in front here, though.
Oh, I get this. This is so easy.
So that would be your equation. Y equals negative 5 halves times x plus negative 3. So go ahead, start working on this sheet. I'll walk around. You guys can work together. But you need to work together, not sit there and talk. If you're sitting there and just talking and I get to you and you've got nothing done, then I'll move you away from each other and I'll work with you. So as long as you're making progress and as long as you all know how to do it, I don't care if you work together. Again, you're the ones that have to take the criticism. Probably got your earbuds in, don't you? That's probably why. Just can't hear anything. You got cracked, huh? Tell you what, let's do one more together. If you're confused, I'm gonna do one more.
I'm not confused. Is that it?
Well, if you're not confused, you start working.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm saying, raise your hand if you want to do one more with me. Like I have one we can do again. If you feel like you're not, if everybody's good, then we'll do it. Go. All right, go then. I'll walk around in a minute and I'll see just how cool we are. Oh yeah. Who was up first? So yeah. You're right.
And then you go, hurry up, 'cause I gotta
Water.
Oh, that's right. So you don't want to go. All right, who was that? Kayla. You can go. Lazarus kind of said I'm fine. He was just going to get water. So.
Someone can,
All right, good. I like it. So Tyler, you're already up for the restroom. People are just hanging out doing the work first.
Yeah.
They said they'll go later. You want to go now? You're gonna work. All right, then you can go.
Oh, can I go slow mo? Can I go?
What's that?
Can I, wait, what? Oh.
Yeah, we got some other people that may jump in front of you if they're ready to go.
Can I go to?
But soon it won't be done. Yeah, if you want to do that, yeah, you can do that. I'm not gonna write you a pass. Just use that thing as your pass.
Oh my god. I tried.
Did you get your physical? Oh, you got your physical. You said you had.
Yeah, my physical coming up because we're gonna do it this week. My doctor was telling, so I have it in front of the fit because coach has my physical. It's not my opt.
Oh, so it hasn't
I'm
expired
good.
yet.
So I'm good to November 5th.
Close. Again, no, but DiMartino's real strict about that stuff. He's the school athletic director. He also, he's the guy that has all the paperwork. If you ever get a physical from one of the teachers here, that's Coach John. He coaches girls softball. I think he helps with football, but he's always at all the football games.
You know Coach Josh? Mr. Gill, you know Coach Josh?
I probably would recognize him. I don't
I'm
know.
pretty sure he's the big head coach for varsity football. Beard.
Well, there's two pretty big coaches.
I know.
I see he was like in,
One's looks like maybe he's Latino, and then
Yeah.
one's not.
Yeah, he has a beard.
Okay, then yeah, I know you're talking
He was like my first coach for football.
Hmm.
He coached me in 2018. So we went to-
Yeah, I guess Coach Chestnut said you had talked to him about the fact that you used to actually play more football or something.
And we went to championships in 2018 and we lost by a point to 70.
In what league?
I think the league was called Extreme, like an X. It was like
That's not like the varsity midgets.
oh no, it's not. What? No, it's just like so the regular football teams, when I was on teams, right?
Yeah.
When I was on teams, yeah. This was the spring version. We're the Hawks. We're the
I
Hawks.
didn't even know they had a team outside of
And then we
that.
went against teams in like around Florida. So
Huh.
actually, our regulars were.
Yeah, I didn't even know you played football until he mentioned something about it one day we were talking.
I played linebacker
Why didn't you play here?
here. I don't know why, but I don't know. I think over summer.
You can always. I know a lot of kids that don't play their first year there.
Over summer, I was just like,
Well, a lot of kids actually still are playing in their league when they're freshmen here, so they don't play here, and then their sophomore year they start playing here.
yeah, the Seminole coach, I think Seminole Seahawks, he called me in the year talking about
Yeah.
I wanted to play basketball.
Yeah, because Coach said you worked out all summer long in basketball.
I want someone little.
I didn't do it yet. I just want to ask you.
It was okay.
Morgan was
It's not as bad as Morgan.
I don't think I'm doing it.
Ugh.
I think like.
Yeah, I don't know. Should go. I fucking stuff for ours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't even belong to someone.
That's why it's wild.
Yeah, I don't belong to someone, but I always
No, I didn't go to the
I'm
game.
just
Oh, that actually. You heard about it?
Yeah.
This number is what?
Oh, I didn't write this.
Oh.
I was taking notes at first.
Oh, all right. What does the B stand for in that equation? Boy, that's
The
good.
Y intercept.
Yes.
Y
Yeah, boy, you gotta know those things. So the y-intercept is visually what? What are you looking for to know where the y-intercept is?
It can be.
Can them go?
Like visually, like on the graph. How do you find the y-intercept? That's the y-axis. Y-axis.
It's correct.
What's the y-intercept?
Yeah, I was gonna have Brandon.
We just did it.
It's.
Oh. Where is he? He's been gone for a while.
He said he was gonna get water, then he was gonna give me the water from the office.
Well, that's the y-intercept.
So the y-axis is this.
I guess.
The y-intercept is just where the line crosses the y-axis. That's how we got, yeah, in the one I think you were on, it was 4. That's how we got here. When we did that blue line, the blue line, that's how we got the -3 is because that's where the blue line crosses the y-axis. So every time you're pulling out the B value to put in the equation, you're just looking for where your line's crossing over the y-axis.
For number 2, since it crosses 0, is it 0?
0. Now, technically, if you write +0 there, you don't really need the +0s. You kind of just leave out. But writing it in this line, I'm never going to mark it off if you write +0.
Okay, then we'll
That's the part that you're going to have brain.
Yeah. Up and down. Always. The y-intercept.
Got the y.
I didn't do the last one, but I don't understand.
Well, we can work on the
I'm gonna do it that way.
So you have a point, so the point you're choosing to find.
You ride straight up.
Rice is a town.
Oh, erase those because I don't think those work. I think it's got it. When I say on a corner, it has got to be right on a corner. Like this is not right on a corner. It's close, but you got. That's why I say the farther apart the points are, the better off you are. Because if you do make a mistake that they're really far apart, it's still a lot closer to the slope than if you think 2 points close together.
It's a good one.
Because I think if you erase those 2 little dots you had, you'll see one of them, that line isn't actually going right through the corner. It's just barely missing it.
Oh, you know what's that? No, you can't.
So we just leave it.
I think it is.
No.
Count again.
Wait, let me push. Boom, 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 boom.
Good Lord, how many times you gonna hop in one spot? Show me again. Just count. No, you don't. You've drawn them in perfectly. Count them. How many hops are there?
No, it's positive.
Oh, how many hops are there? How many steps? A hop is one of the parts.
Up. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, number 3.
What's your name?
Well, I don't understand when people mess up stuff. I wish I did so that I could fix it better. This is a hop. That's a hop. What is a hop? A hop. It's a hop.
I'm sorry. I'm literally blind.
I don't know how you got 6, and you still said 5 a second ago.
Oh.
It's just one of those little.
See, I think I have dyslexia.
Hey, you should do that.
No, this is just for the big quiz. This is,
Oh.
again, pretty big section of the big quiz. But I don't think it's a hard section, but it's a pretty big section.
For the rest of the class, we're just gonna be
I am going to tell you what's on the quiz, so the last 10 minutes I'll just say. I'm working my way back, Neely. 3, 5, which means it would be what? Ooh, that's not 5. That's got to be the line across over the line. I got it right there. It doesn't cross over the 5 here. This one. Change that. You got your, I think you got your rise and run stuff going correctly. Just you got to make sure you put them in the right spot. That one's a little tricky. I'll go over that one in a minute. But let me see the first step. So you did the first step here. Although I don't think you did your rise and run right. And we got to clean up.
How do people not understand
space
my
in front of that X so you can
But
write
they
that.
understand yours. Because you're talking to me.
Exactly.
No, she doesn't. I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand that.
I talk it faster than
I don't
You
talk
can't start leaving more space. You should read or write it to the slope in front of that X.
I talk slow French too.
Light space.
No, you don't. I can understand it. I can understand it. You guys can
Are you Puerto Rican?
Yes, Puerto Rican.
Slide
You sound like
that
a Mexican.
or slide all
Not
that.
really.
That's not nice.
Thank you.
What is not nice about it?
There, so
Well,
that's
I
gonna be
never
the slope once we figure it out.
Because when we decide the Mexican, it's going to say their
Puerto
words.
Ricans
Like,
being
Once you
fat,
chose out
Dominicans
the line,
being
I'm
fat.
right.
You're not sure either?
So that was very
You're
good.
not sure either? Same down.
Yes, help me please.
We're gonna do, okay, we're gonna do another one, because the first 3 people I checked didn't know what they were doing. So we're gonna do another one. You guys all, oh, we're good, we're good. Well, first 3 people, they got it all wrong. Let me just go over it and then I'll come to you guys next. So, I'm gonna show you where I saw the mistakes really quickly, and then hopefully this will help some other people. If you're still confused, I'm gonna be walking around. We got a bunch of time left still 45 minutes. So, most people were good to this point. So, gentlemen, go ahead and have a seat. Where's Brandon?
I know.
I thought you wanted to go
So-
to the water bottle.
He did, but it shouldn't take that long. Lazar said he was
I didn't
doing
even
something
see
else.
him when I went.
So everybody right now, up here, too many people are struggling. So watch what I'm doing. Hopefully that clarifies, then you can go back to trying to help each other. This is an automatic. And most people, now when you write it, make sure you leave space here, because you're going to put something in front of that X. You're going to put the slope, the M value. So write that. And there's always space at the end because there's nothing else after until we put it there. So the first step after this is just where's my line crossing over the y-axis? So my y-intercept is -4. So who am I going to call on for that? Zaid.
I can try.
Where does that? So I just said the y-intercept is -4, right?
Yeah.
I didn't say it. Somebody else said it. That line crosses the y-axis at -4. So that is my y-intercept. -4. Where does that go?
The
What do you mean?
Where's it go? That's part. That's going to be part of the equation. Where's it go?
Oh. On the other side. Like, it's
So when you say the other side, be specific.
y equals x plus 4.
Plus negative.
-4.
All right, so we're done with the first part of that. So Brandon, we're going through and doing another one because the first 3 people I checked didn't know how to do mainly this step I'm on right now. So now, here's where people kind of started struggling a little bit. They sort of remembered this, some of them didn't remember this, but we would write rise over run. Then from there, they maybe were a little fuzzy on picking the points or something, so I'm going to go back through it again. So again, you would write rise over run now. I would pick, again, the y-intercept will always work because it will always be on the corners. That's kind of the definition of where it's at. It's going to be on corners. And when you're going for water, I shouldn't see you coming back with drinks and stuff. 'Cause we've been waiting for a long time. but we've been waiting for a long time for you to
They
get
took all
back.
the money.
So if you were just going for water, that's why I let you just go for water earlier, is because that shouldn't have taken a long time. So if you're doing something else, tell me so that we know how long it's going to be. You're
I
in the
did have
line
to help
again.
Tyler to
So
find
I don't know where we're at now, so because that one, only one person is gone, it should have been about 2 or 3 people. So now I've got to pick another point. Again, only 2 requirements. On the line, and when I say line, I'm not talking about the y-axis or the x-axis. That's the y-axis and the x-axis. It's got to be on the line that's been graphed. In this case, it's blue. It won't be blue on your papers. So what's a point we can use, Brandon?
You can use positive 4 and positive 4.
So let's see if that works. It's got to be on the line and on 2 corners. Perfect. Right there. That is absolutely. Now, on one of your graphs, actually, just look at number 2 real quick. Well, you can get help because all 3 of them, I think, are good. So, on number 2, everybody look at number 2 on your graph. There's not really like the y-intercept works. Where's the y-intercept at?
Y-intercept is at 0.
So it's 0, 0 to be very specific, but it's where y equals 0. There's not a great point that's on the rest of the graph. Like if you look, that line or that line is kind of missing the corners of squares everywhere in that graph, except for 2 other spots. It's actually at the very end of the line. So if you look at the very top end or the bottom end of the line, that's where it's actually running into the corners there. But yeah, anywhere in the middle of that graph, it's not really hitting corners. So it is kind of tricky on that one. But now you know, it's at either end of the line, you can use that as your second point. So once you do that, I always pick the point on the left, and I got to go left or right. I'm always going to go right if I pick the point on the left, because if I'm picking the point on the left, the other point's always going to be on the right. So I go right first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm directly underneath, so I stop. If I was directly over it, I would also stop. Well, again, I've just got to go through it. We've already been through it. I can't do a whole lesson over again. You were sitting there drawing quite a bit. You did a lot of drawing. I don't think it was note taking, so I can't repeat the whole lesson. All right, well, I'll come back and look. And then I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now this has happened. It's not just this class. It's happened several classes, so I'm going to go over it. Once you do this hopping, we struggle to count sometimes. Like I got people trying to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we don't count the point that we start on. Just count the hops. This is a hop. That's a hop. That's a hop. That's a hop. Those are hops. Count how many hops you got. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Counting, for some reason, becomes an issue in this lesson. I don't really get why, but if you do those hops and then you count how many hops, you should be good. So now I have a rise and a run number now. The left and right number is the run number, so that's the 4. And it's positive because I went to the right. The up and down, how do you know that? Because you shouldn't know that. The up and down number is 8. So if you say 8 divided by 4, that actually just becomes 2. So that would be your equation.
That's also
So
negative.
try to do it again.
That's negative.
Can you check my
That slope, that blue line has a negative
no,
slope.
no.
No, it goes up from left to
My
right.
bad. What did you say?
Up from left to right.
Wait, what?
8 divided by 4.
That's positive. Yeah, my bad.
You check mine?
Yep.
I didn't
It's like Yep.
Yeah.
Or I'll check one of them so you guys can check off the other ones. I don't remember the order. Was it one that waited? Somebody, Tyler, but he left, and then were you after Zaid? All right.
Is the bigger number on top or bottom?
I'm about to take Lauren, and then I may just leave her to work with you guys if hers are all right, so I can work with you those struggling. Good.
I don't think I finished that one. Or did I?
That just be another. I just had like.
Yeah, that one.
I think it's react.
So you did it differently than I did it, but you have the right answer. So I'm fine with that, just make sure moving. Oh, wait, I wanted to check it out.
Wait, that's the nail?
I wrote window.
Site.
Wait, isn't it?
Now, here's one thing that I will
Where's the
say.
word?
You did it correctly here.
Yeah, there you go, that's what I said.
Your positive, negative stuff got off some. The way I know that is that line should have a negative
Oh,
slope.
yeah.
Right? Going down on the left.
Yeah.
So the first thing I noticed is one of the negative slope.
Yeah.
So somehow you counted and made something positive, it should have been negative.
Yeah.
So just so you're aware, make sure at the end you look at that. Now here, this one is like doing a negative divided by a negative, which does equal positives, so that's matches up with positives right there. Here you got the negative, so that's a negative slope. Just be careful at the end, match that up and make sure that it's good. Yeah, sure, because this is a positive slope, right? It goes up from left to right. It's gonna have a positive slope. Well, that should have what kind of slope it's going down.
Mr. Gill, I do have
Yeah.
a
You never
negative.
do that again.
Somewhere, now, once you realize it needs to be negative, honestly, the numbers aren't gonna change. It's just
I put that
one of
on Broadway's
them. So
story.
if you just know, well, no, that's not the slope. That's the y-intercept, that's not it. One of these two. But if you just understand, this should have been a negative. It doesn't matter which one you're negative. Fraction, fraction. Same right here, that should have been negative. Because depending on one, if I go to the right, that's positive, but down is negative. Or if I go up, that's positive, but then left is negative. So it doesn't really matter, yeah, as long as you only make one of the negative, don't make both. So you're doing the right thing, but I don't have to wait, you gotta give me a little bit. Remember, the first step is really, before you do what you're doing, your first step is to write this. That. And then you just fill in the missing pieces. Yeah, absolutely. Negative divided by negative is positive, and then divide.
I'm gonna write I'm gonna do something. I still see your shadows. I'm like,
We can make that.
That's the first
You
thing.
know Logan?
Hold on, I'll come back that way in a little while. That's good. I think you did your rise and upside down. That's your rise. Top of it. That's your run. Be careful, like you wrote rise there, but you wrote two. Rise up and down. No, that's not. Where's that line? Nope. Where's the, show me the line I'm talking about. Yeah, so where's that? You're going to the left. There, that's what it crosses. Is that line that has rises up and down? Is that line have a positive and negative slope? The line that slants down always has what kind of slope? So it's going to be negative. Again, you really don't have to go back to read that. As long as you understand. Right.
Well, my
she's like the most alien I have. You could be an outlet out of the blood.
Either way, one of your lines is good. Try to do enough. Try to do
Where are you taking?
Yeah, numbers are fine. You're counting the right amount over and but you didn't have a negative on one of them. Try to do the other ones. Well, but what would you do with that? There you go. And again, something else as well. If the line is sloping down from that way, there you go. So what are your numbers sitting on negative?
Bro, everything's crazy. Do you not understand? I'm going to take it. I'm talking about give it to you. We're just like, where are we walking kids like that?
Well, let's talk about that. You're going from one point on the line to another point on the line. That's what you have to do. You're on this section. You're going from one point on this line.
That's how we're gonna end up being. Our goddamn walker.
They're creating an equation. Go, how many? So where are you starting from on the line? What's your starting point on the line? Well, that's not on the line. On the line. There. So there, that could be a starting point. So you're going to go from that point to what you're starting. Oh, no. We're taking base. We'll go from that point to which point? Whoops, sorry. Just show me the other point. You've already, I know. The whole process. You're going to go from there, there. That's where we're going. And then you start here. Now you're telling me you're going to do it. They go behind.
I'm going to say, they can find it.
You can start here, that's fine, you can go there. But I want you to always do it. So where do you want to start? You want to go from left to right, right to left?
Yeah, but
So the next one, the point is on the left. Put the pencil on that point. And just follow the hop. Do the hop. So there you go. Just stop there. How many times you hop? So 2. You got your rise and your run. You don't have rise and run. Sound like you want to should. Right. Rise would be up. Like you rise, you go up. So it's it's gotta be. You need to feel it right, rise over run. Well, I want you to do it every single time. 2, one, getting mixed up. 2, if you do that, even if you mix up something, I can at least give you a little credit. So now, which one's the run?
So basically, he's giving us
Or what numbers should you put in the wall?
That's still basically.
Well, I want to put it right next to that. What drives me crazy? You keep struggling. Follow the steps. Don't care if it's like 8 steps. Follow that. Then once you get better, you're not making mistakes.
January 10th.
So now, rise over run. Except for one. You went to the right, and then went to the left. What does that look like?
Are you talking about Kiss?
Yeah. But what?
Freddie Mercury, bro, just go ahead, bro. They're like,
You're counting down the rise on the
That's my grandma.
There you go. Now you got slope.
what are you doing?
I kiss.
You don't need to convert it to this side.
I run out to high school. It was like give me something. I don't care. I'm sorry.
So what I want you to do, so again, rise over run.
Bro, I don't see how that was math back then.
Right.
All 5 years of elementary school. Like, all black girls, all black garages.
There you go. And also, if you go, well, look, right here. Where did you start? Which was your first point you started? Did you start here and go up, or did you start here and go left? Okay, so if you go up, I said it a million times, start on the left and go to the right. Nobody does stuff I say, and then we struggle. If you start, that's always going to be a positive. Always be. You start on the far left corner. So I don't care if it's below or above, the part is left. So I go right or run. If I count right, my run is positive. So that's going to be my run. Now from there, so what is a rise that is done? And remember, if the line slants down and right, it's negative. Now, the side of your slope matches the Right? So let's see. So I want you to do that one. I'll come back and check it. That one's a little trickier. But we follow the same steps. Hold on just a second.
I'm only because we missed
Which one is your rise? Which one is your run? Hold on, I gotta say this because people, I need everybody's attention. I hope all of you are working because I feel like some of you are not. All right, and just because you have a paper that's filled out doesn't mean you're working. Don't let somebody do it for you. They're not taking the quiz for you next week. This is 0 credit right here. You're not getting really any credit for doing this. The credit is when you take the quiz next week and you do okay on this section on the quiz. So if you're not learning this when you're practicing, it's doing you 0 good. It'd be better to sit there and struggle and get one problem done, but actually learn how to do it, than to sit there and have a whole sheet filled out and you still don't know what you're doing. I'm seeing way too many kids get these flipped. Write down rise over run, because too many people haven't done it. And then when you fill in the hops, write in the numbers, which most people were actually doing that. But make sure you put the run, which is left and right. What's my left and right number? No, out of that, which number is left and right? Left and right is 2. Rise is up and down. Way too many people have flipped those. I've seen 3 people at least, if not more. And I've only checked like 5. Make sure you're following all the steps. You guys are trying to take shortcuts. You're not there yet. Once you've done 100 of these, maybe you'll be there. You've done like 3. Don't take shortcuts. Write down the rise and run. Do all the hops, and right next to that, write the rise and run numbers. No, that's just part of it. Then you got to put that into the equation for the slope.
What do you mean?
Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
Are we on the back?
Oh, like, no,
What's
someone was saying.
What's the number?
Nope. Literally, I just said you were
I got it right.
No, but so you know how your favorite color is?
We do the first page or all the pages? The best of all the pages.
I used to be 5 when you used to be 10.
Actually depends on which way you get it. If you get it this way, I went
Which
down,
one?
you went left. So
Yeah.
yours is right.
See what I'm saying yet?
See,
I am not. Don't.
This is what I'm saying, don't.
No, I didn't skip it. I did it right.
Yeah, you skipped it, you thought you did it up here, but so you didn't write it down.
I don't need to
You
write
do
it
see
down.
it's wrong, right?
So even when I wrote it down, you still have to correct it.
No, if you would've written it down, it's pretty hard to write this down and then write the wrong number. No, because if you would've written it down, it would've been correct. You wouldn't have messed up. You tried to do it in your head, what?
I still messed up though because even though I wrote it down, I didn't know.
No, that's because you already had in your head what you thought it should be. If you would've started from scratch and written it down, I don't think you would. Try it on the next one, write it down and see if you still mess up. Just get that for now. There's a lot of stuff.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, that's, I'm not worried about that. I'm not gonna put one like that on. Good. That was good job. Oh, on the back page, by the way. I need your attention.
Oh.
I never thought you still
I still got 3. I did it in a different way.
Need everybody's attention. I'm not yelling.
I got -6, -2.
Can you please tell them to be
I
quiet?
think the ninth grade.
Oh, sorry.
Quiet. Quiet. I can't yell anymore. So already cursed. On the back page, it already has the answer. So
Oh.
create the equation and just check with the answer they already have done.
So we're seeing if the answer is right or wrong.
No, I meant to actually get rid of them. I deleted all the answers from the first page, so that's why they're not there. I forgot to delete them on the second, but that's fine. Just use that to check your own work. I'd go through, try to figure it out on your own. Don't look at the answer and cheat. It doesn't do you any good. Try to truly do it on your own. I'm not worried about 5, so just 6, 7, 8. Try to do 6, 7, and 8 on your own. Once you're done, then you can just look at the way the equation should be and see if you got it right.
What if these different?
Doesn't matter. Slope is the same at any 2 points. I'll show you. I just use these 2 points here, right? I got 4 and 2, which comes out to be 2, right? I could use these 2. I use this point and that point way up there, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10 over 5. Or I could use 2 right next to each other.
Oh, I've got the answer. You just said the answer from the bank.
2 over 1. It would never be different numbers. I don't care what 2 points. I could go different directions. I could go from here, instead of going up and right, I could go down, 1, 2, and left. I get -2 over -1, still 2. You will never get a different answer. Never ever. Not if you do it
No, I
right.
was thinking that portion that I think from that.
Brandon gets so fired up. Marker, why do you think marker anyway?
Because I am drawing.
Are you done with all those?
I don't know how